So, hello, or as we say in Finland, terve. And it's actually the first React Finland podcast from Finland, because what happened is that I bought a house in Finland. So now I live somewhere in the middle of the countryside, and I like it. So I guess that's what matters. My name is Juho Pepseläinen. I'm the director of React Finland, and because of you know what, we have to move our events online. So we had to cancel last year's event, and then this year we regroup. And last year we did this online mini conus, and for this year we are doing podcasts. And for this event, we're going to focus on the topic of full stack React. So we're going to learn a lot about this topic, and we have three speakers: Amadeus, Ali, and Brandon. So maybe you can introduce yourself and tell what your live coding session will be about. Who goes first?
Ali, you want to go first? Ladies first?
Sure. I can go first because my talk is first. I am Ali Spittel. I am a senior developer advocate who also manages the developer advocacy team at AWS Amplify. I'm going to be demoing one of my favorite features, which is the Amplify admin UI. So we're going to be using this like low code feature and then integrating it into a React app.
Cool. I guess Amadeus can go next.
Yes. Hi, my name is Amadeus. I'm a co-founder of a small web agency based in Munich. We create performant web pages and...
Yeah, there's some echo. It's fine.
Okay. We create performant web pages and focus on conversion optimization. So this includes SEO, writing content, and creating engaging user interfaces for our clients.
Okay, and Brandon.
And I'm Brandon. I am the creator of Blitz.js and full-time maintainer of Blitz.js. So I'll be talking about that.
All right. So how can we define full stack React? What's sort of the definition for full stack React? Because I think for a lot of people, React is a user interface library. It's something I use for creating user interfaces. So where did that term come from, or how do you see it?
So it is a bit of a oxymoron in some respect, because React is like a client-side JavaScript framework, right? But it's full stack React to me is like you want React to be kind of the central piece of defining your architecture and your app. You know, you want to build a React app, and so a lot of people come to it as front-end developers. And they're thinking, I'm going to build a React app. And then it's like, oh, wait, I need to save the data somewhere. I need a database. And so quickly it turns into a full stack app, but yet it's still like React is one of the key parts of it. And so, yeah, that's what full stack React is to me.
Yeah, I would kind of +1 on that development is simultaneously more easy and more difficult than it's ever been, that we can enable more and more people to be developers. Like you can use Squarespace or whatever to build a website, but then at the same point, you can have an application that has so many different layers and so many different pieces to it. And so how do we enable more people to build with what they're comfortable with? And so I think that's where full stack React comes in, is front-end developers are mostly using React, or at least a lot of us are. And so meet them where they're at, use a stack that they're comfortable with. And so making it so that they can live in as much of the ecosystem that they're used to as possible.
Yeah, I would second this. And I think it's very interesting, the trend that we see, because usually React is only client-side, and over the past years, we added server-side rendering, static generation, and when we see the different side of web development, for example, a traditional backend framework like Ruby on Rails, they move into the direction of React, so with turbo links and frames. So everything is getting to this point that everything can do everything, and we're on the React side, and so we move this flag closer to our end goal.
I like
Of a full
that
stack, yeah.
analogy a lot because like Rails was full stack as a framework, or is a full stack as a framework. I shouldn't say was. I just am no longer a Rails developer and was for a lot of years. So it is a full stack framework, but it moves back to front. Like it really optimizes the back end experience. Whereas a lot of frameworks now are thinking full stack, but front end experience first. And how do you start with the front end and then move back?
Yeah. I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In a one recent project, it was a couple of years back, but I was writing React app, I think it was Next.js. And then what happened, I mean, I'm more on the front end side. So I ended up, because there is a backend, of course, but the backend it was in REST API and it wasn't ready or whatever. So I wrote the GraphQL API or proxy in between the sort of the real backend, and then eventually they connected to this proxy I wrote. So you can sort of, as a front end developer, you can do a lot. I mean, you can do this sort of backend or middleware things as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And talking about those backend stuff or DevOps even, of course, I'm a front-end developer, and having the opportunity with AWS CDK to create my own stack. So I have the right permissions, I have the right EC2 instances and stuff like that. Everything moves towards me, I feel like. So everything gets more comfortable for me. I have the CDK in my Visual Code editor, and I can create my stacks. And this is really a great time to be alive for me. Yeah.
Yeah. So, does anyone else have any comment on this, or are we ready for the first demonstration?
I see lots of love for Blitz in the comments.
Yeah, we can highlight that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
There is, but that's one thing. So I can highlight comments from YouTube. I can bring something for discussion. So I hope that we get a lot of comments, so we can discuss after the demonstration. But I guess that was enough introduction about the general topic. So let's move on to the first live demonstration about Amplify.js. So that's it. Finishing typing, just a moment. There we go.
Nice, I like that video. It's awesome. So I'm going to be using the AWS Amplify admin UI for my demo. You don't need to start in this direction. You can also use the AWS Amplify admin or its command line interface, which allows you to start from the command line. And both these tools are backwards and forwards compatible. So if you start with one, you can move to the other and vice versa. So I'm going to get started, and I am going to set up data for my application. I'm going to start with a blank schema, though you can start with some models created. And I am going to create some models. So I will do, we're going to build a rough Instagram clone. So very, very light version of Instagram. So timeline item, which is going to have an ID, a description, which will be a string, and then a post time, which we could make an AWS date time if you want. And then we will also have comments. So I will do body. Then what we'll do is we'll add a relationship between them. So we will have one timeline item to many comments. So one item on a news feed would have many responses to it. And so you can create these relationships like so. So many-to-many relationship, a one-to-one relationship, or a one-to-many. You can also make the fields required or array fields as well if you want. We'll skip that for now. Then the next thing that you can do is test locally in your application. So it'll give you guidance for what type of app you're building. I've already started an application, and you can create a new app if you want. Then you need to install the command line interface and then pull down your model. So run this Amplify pull with the sandbox ID, and it will sync your backend with your front end. And you just created those data models. Then you'll add the Amplify configure and you can test locally. I'm actually going to skip this. So you can run all of these things and test out and build out your front end without deploying to AWS. You don't have like any chances of getting any charges because you don't even need to have an AWS account to do this. So that's step one. But I'm going to actually use a deployed version so that you don't have to wait through the deploy step. So you can log into your AWS account. And once it's deployed, this one has a little bit more of a complex data model associated with it. But I have the timeline item like I did before, the comment, and then there's also a user. So this will be the person that creates the item and the comment. So each timeline item and comment will belong to a user. And then the content is a one-to-one relationship with the timeline item. So each timeline item has content associated with it, and that content can be an image or a video. So once you deploy, you get this set up, and it's like a one-click deploy. And then you can view your content as well. So I pre-created a couple items for the sake of this demo, but there are images uploaded onto here, and there are users that I pre-created. They're mostly just me and then my dog, Blair. So what we're going to do now is we're going to integrate this into our application. And I have a mostly pre-written React app already. So I ran Amplify pull in here. And then in the index.js, I configured Amplify. All of the information about the backend is stored in this AWS exports.js file. And so I'm running Amplify configure on that file, which is tying my front end to my backend. So then what I'm going to do is in my timeline.js, I am going to use the data store API to get my data. So const timeline data equals await data store.query timeline item. And so what this is doing is it is querying data store to get all of the timeline items back. Data store is going to be an offline online data model. So what that means is the data is going to be stored offline first in indexed.db, which is in-browser data storage. And so that will be offline available, and then it will sync behind the scenes to DynamoDB, which has a middle layer of AWS AppSync, which is a managed GraphQL service. So your data will be available both online and offline by default without you having to do any sort of finagling yourself. Then the next thing that I'm going to do is set timeline with this timeline data. Now I'm forgetting what port I'm running my app on, so I need to rerun that. I think it's 3001. And it is. Okay. So now I have my Insta posts rendering on the page, and I can share my completed code too, because I know that I did a lot of this first, but it's just a normal React app using Create React App, no fancy things. I also use Chakra UI for the user interface so that I didn't need to write CSS myself. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add the comments on here. So I have the comment list component. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to query for them and only get the comments that belong to each image. So const post comments equals await data store.query. I'm going to query for the comment object this time, and I'm going to filter it. Timeline item ID is equal to the post ID. So data store allows you to create queries like this, where you filter your data according to some condition, kind of like native filter in JavaScript. So this is only going to get the comments for each post that belong to that post. Then I'll update my state with those comments. And now you can see that the comments are attached to each user. I also can enable authentication. So back in the admin UI, you can go to this authentication page, and with a couple clicks, add authentication to your app, and then you can run Amplify pull in order to pull those changes down. So it runs with a Git-like model of Amplify push to push changes to the cloud, Amplify pull to pull any changes that you make in this admin UI down to your local application. And you can add like two-factor, all of those types of things. And then I already created an account, but you can create an account through this form. How I got this form, I did not really need to write custom code. I just did this with Authenticator higher order component. And what that's going to do is it's going to make it so that you need to sign in order to view this form. So in order to create a user using this form, I need to sign into my account. And it sent me a confirmation code. So I will skip this part, but then what I wanted to show you is that you can also enable storage. All that was behind the login was just a form, nothing exciting. Then I also did the users. So these were created via that comment form. And these images are stored on Amazon S3. So you can enable storage using the Amplify CLI. So doing things like Amplify add storage using the command line interface. So just like that, that will add storage to your application, and then you can configure it in your app. And what I'm doing is I am getting these images stored via Amazon S3 instead of being local to my app or being stored images in like Google or anything like that. And then I'm looping through them and rendering them on the page. So you can enable these backend services using a command line interface and just a little bit of React code on your end or JavaScript code. It works not just in React, it works across JavaScript frameworks. So yeah, that was kind of what I had for a demo, but I'm totally here for questions that people have or can dive into more as well.
Yeah, thank you for the demonstration. And I think it's really impressive how much you can do with so little. So you set up data models and then you use the client and then off you go. I mean, So, I mean, I think one thing I remember for Amplify, because I've been using Amplify for a little bit in a client project, I think it has support for GraphQL as well. So we could more or less like start writing GraphQL queries for the same data if you're into that.
Yes. So actually, I didn't get into this because 10 minutes is so short, but there is generated GraphQL. So if you go into this backend and then API and then schema.graphql, it actually generated GraphQL code for you. So there is this content, this timeline ID, the user, and the comment right there. It also generates TypeScript models as well for you. So in here that you have TypeScript models for them, which is really nice for VS Code because it we'll have all the auto import and all the nice like TypeScript support things that you may have.
Yeah, that's great. So, but I guess the client you were using it's using GraphQL or something underneath.
Yeah, so Data Store uses this GraphQL via AWS AppSync under the hood.
All right, great.
So okay. I have a quick question about that. Would it be possible to opt out of Data Store, for example, and use like React Query, SWR, and also query the AppSync GraphQL layer, right? This would be possible. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Cool. The offline-online support might be a little bit different with that, but
yeah, of course.
Yeah,
of course. It just came to my mind and wanted to ask it.
Yeah.
So let's see if anyone has any question in YouTube, or actually I don't know if anyone is following our Twitch. but I can take questions from audience now, unless you have other comments to make. Let's see. Yeah, it's a it's a Finnish audience, so they don't ask, and then but it doesn't make sense because we should have international people as well, not just Finnish people.
Cool. Well, I sent out the code. There are 2 branches, main and starter. I think the starter is actually the completed code, which is not correct, but I pushed the wrong branch, so it's fine. It's fine.
Cool. Yeah. So I wonder if we should move to the next demonstration, or unless anyone has anything in mind. But thanks for your time, Ali. My understanding is you have to go, so it's totally fine if you want to leave. And I think we move on to the demonstration about Next.js.
Awesome. Talk to y'all later.
See you. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
So, let's share my screen.
Yeah. Running the loop. Another time. Yeah, let's do another round so you can figure out the
yes,
sharing setup.
Yeah, it froze on me, so.
Yeah.
But you can still hear me, right?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, something went wrong with the screen share.
Yeah, my browser froze completely, so I think I have to restart it somehow.
Let's see. Yeah, that's what I told you. There's always some new issue, and now we found an issue, but it's totally fine because we have time. So we can figure this out.
Have you used Amplify at all yourself?
Yeah, so in this current client project, the client is using Amplify. So it's sort of I've had to use the APIs a little bit, and I mean for me it seems quite impressive because you get so much out of the box, and if you're on Amazon, it's sort of a no-brainer to use it.
Are you using AppSync and Data Store?
I think the point was that we are using some older version of Amplify and API. So I think the client wants to use Data Store, but it's not simple because we're somehow stuck with the legacy thing. But there's something I don't understand. But it's I think my feeling is that it improved a lot during the past year, and it's going forward really fast. So as an option, it's getting better and better for React apps, especially for people that don't like to write front-end themselves.
My thought is that. Yeah. My thought is that Data Store is if somebody needs an offline first app today, like production ready offline first, where it just works even if you're not online, and then when you come back online, like everything syncs. Data Store is it's like the only really recommendation that I have. It'd be great if there's more things, and I think at some point it'd be great if, like, my long-term vision for Blitz is to be able to have offline first apps with Blitz too, but it's a really hard problem.
Yeah, it's a hard problem, and as it happens, in this client project we wrote some sort of data sync on ourselves. So we wrote something kind of like a wrapper on top of IndexedDB, and then we do background fetching for data because we have really a lot of data, and the clients they want to access the data fast. But yeah, that's let's just put it this way, that it's very hard. It's very, very hard to build your own data sync because there's IndexedDB, these APIs and everything. You will find all the dirty bits and all the things that don't work when you have multiple different browsers and all that. But let's see if we can get this demonstration going.
Yes, sorry, my Debian just crashed completely. I had to unplug.
In Finnish we have this term called demo effect. So it's whenever you try to demonstrate even the most simple thing, something will go wrong. It's sort of like the law of demonstrations. That's what makes the demonstrations super interesting.
Oh no, it happened again.
Oh no.
No.
Can you try a different browser?
Yeah.
What browser are you using?
I'm on Firefox right now.
Maybe you can try Chrome. I think it works best on Chrome.
But I think I have to plug the power again because everything froze up again. Oh no. So
you should be able to use Open Activity Monitor.
It's not working.
And then force kill. Really?
Nope, it's completely frozen.
Force kill Firefox.
It's completely frozen. I'm trying. I don't know if you can hear my keyboard, but I'm pressing commands. It's not happening.
Maybe you have to restart your computer. I mean, one option is that we switch the demonstration, so we do Blitz.js first, and then figure out the problem meanwhile, and then go Next.js. I mean, it's sort of not logical order, but I mean that's something that will likely work. So, what do you think?
Probably I should just go.
Yeah. Just to give some background, so I mean you can tell much better, but Blitz.js is a solution built on top of Next.js. So that's why I was thinking that we should discuss Next.js first. But let's do Blitz.js and then Next.js after that. So if you can share your screen, then we can do Blitz.js demonstration. I guess it ties to Amplify anyway. So.
All right, so I'll give you a quick background on why I started Blitz, and then I'll get into some live demo.
Yeah, sure.
So I was happily building a full stack React apps for a few years, and I happily put up with the complexity and struggle required to do that because I loved building user interfaces with React more than any other way. But the honeymoon ended. And I became increasingly frustrated with REST, GraphQL, MobX state tree, just like Redux, like all these state management things, managing multiple servers and deployments. Anything that got in the way of me building features slowly depleted my morale. I really wanted to love full stack development again. I really wanted to focus on building features. Instead of just like doing all other kinds of stuff like marshaling data all around the universe. So I decided enough was enough, and I set out to build the best possible developer experience for full stack React apps. Now there were two things that I really wanted to achieve the developer experience that I was going for. So number one is I wanted it to be a monolithic. Now, monolithic means to me that that there's only one thing to develop and only one thing to deploy. And conceptually, as you're thinking about your application, there's only one thing. And this just simplifies so many things in your app. And so secondly, that goes along with that is no API. The API layer in React apps is like the biggest source of complexity and frustration and bugs and just like all sorts of things. And so I wanted to get rid of that. And my background was in Ruby on Rails. And so there's no API. It's just a monolith, and it's just so fast and simple to build things. But yeah, then if you want to you can't use React in that model. And so it's hard to build complex user interfaces, but I liked React. And so I wanted to kind of marry these things together. But how can I do this? How can we do this, right? And so I was like, well, do we have to go back to that tried and true server-side rendering approach? Because we could do that with Next.js or something else where you just server-side render your React app, and then you don't have to have the API, except you still have to have you can use like the old school form submits for modifying data. But this is the only thing I knew. So when I first announced Blitz, this was what it was. My first prototype was server-side rendered only. But I didn't love it. And so me and the other early Blitz contributors were going back and forth, talking about this, like what could it look like? And one day I was laying in a hammock in Thailand thinking about this. And I thought, and I asked myself, what would this look like if it was easy? And I thought about that and I was like, well, if it was easy, I could just write functions that run on the server, and then I could import those functions directly into my React components, and it would just work. Like I wouldn't have to think about anything else besides writing a function and using the function. So I was like, wow. If could we make this work? If we could, this would be a game changer. And turns out it was. And we can make it work. So now to get into some of the details about what Blitz is. Number one is it's built on top of Next.js, which you were going to hear about first, but now you hear about second. So Next is a really awesome foundation for Blitz, because Next is like, it's really kind of focused and minimal in what it does, but what it does really well. And it allows, it's hybrid, so it allows you to do server-side rendering, client-side renderings, static page generation like Gatsby, and then also API routes. So it has like everything you need for building an app, but yet it leaves everything to you to build and like set up yourself. And then secondly is Prisma. Prisma is a next generation ORM for Node.js and TypeScript, and it's awesome. And so this was like a key piece to being able to build something like this. And so that's secondly a key piece of Blitz. Now you don't have to use Prisma, but we have it in by default because it's the best experience. I'll quickly list our foundational principles, which are full stack and monolithic, API not required, convention over configuration, loose opinions, easy to start, easy to scale, stability, community over code, and yeah, that's it. There's only 7. And so you can go in there. We have a manifesto that goes into all of these in more details on our website. Now, the first thing you'll notice with Blitz is that a lot of the menial setup is done for you out of the box. So we give you a default folder structure. You can change it, but we give you a starting point. We set up ESLint, Prettier, Husky, Git hooks, Jest, test, a database, forms. And then the big one is user sign up, log in and log out is already set up for you whenever you create a new Blitz app. And so like a lot of times your first task when starting something new is, okay, I got to figure out how to set up authentication and how to get user sign up and accounts and all this stuff. And then you like give up, right? And go into some other idea. But with Blitz, no more. It's already done for you. So you just run Blitz new, generate an app, and then it's done. You don't even have to think about it. And then we also have reset password flow along with that. So it's amazing. It's one of my favorite features. Okay, so now let's talk about the real kind of key innovative part of Blitz is that zero API data layer. So how it works is we abstract the API into a compile step. And so there is actually an API at runtime. So in the same way that serverless still has servers, zero API still has an API. And but conceptually, as you're developing it, you don't really have to think about it or know about it. You don't have to manually write your API endpoints. You don't have to manually do the fetching. And so it lets you import server code directly into your front end. And then your server code is what it looks like in Blitz is queries and mutations. Now, it doesn't have anything to do with GraphQL. It just uses the same nomenclature. And these are plain asynchronous JavaScript functions that always run on the server. But then, of course, you can add an API if you want. So you could add a REST API or GraphQL API, or you could talk to Amplify AppSync or whatever you need to do. We don't restrict any of that. All right, so let's get into some code here. All right, so I have just created a new app, and so this is what you see when you run Blitz new React Finland. The first thing it asks you to pick a form library. I picked React Final Form, and then you can see there's quite a lot of files here that it created. Now, initially, this can be a bit overwhelming. But it was like, whoa, what's all this garbage you just spit out at me? But what we're optimizing for here is not initial first impressions like, wow, this is so simple. What we're optimizing for is actually doing work, actually being able to get something done. And so we give you all the code that most apps are going to need. That way, you have everything there versus it's like so simple. There's only 2 files, but then first thing you need to go to do something, and then you have to go look up documentation or add the files. And so we just give you all that by default. So take your time to kind of work your way through it and understand it. But once you kind of get the understanding of it, then you just do that one time, right? And then it's basically the same for every new app. Most of this code is dealing with authentication. So login form, sign up form, your forgot password, change password, log in, log out, reset password, etc. So it installs the dependencies, sets everything up, sets up a database already for us, SQLite. And so we're just going to go into that directory, and then we run blitz dev. And let me open up the browser here. Guys, while this is compiling, it's always a bit slow whenever you're live streaming.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of expected that when we do a live demonstration, that's there's some challenge. So now it compiled. Cool.
All right, here we go. So this is what you see with the new Blitz app. So it's just a kind of a standard basic getting started page, but it has a sign up and login button, and so we can click. Oops. Let me just hide this. Hide on this page. Okay, so I can go ahead and create an account, and now I'm logged in. That's it. And I can log out, log back in, whatever. You can see I have a user ID of 1, a user role of user. So one thing I'll show you here is that we can run Blitz Prisma Studio. And this will open a little thing that allows us to view the database. And then I'm also going to open Blitz console, which I'll show you in a second. So this is Prisma Studio, so we can see all our data in our database. We can click on user, and then we can see this right here that it has user created that, updated that, the email, hash password, the user role, etc. And so this is all, you get all this out of the box, so it's really nice. And I actually run this Prisma Studio in production for admins to be able to just have access to their production data. And we have some documentation on how you can do that. Okay, and then so the other thing is this Blitz console on the bottom right of my screen here. And this opens up a Node.js REPL, and it loads your code like your database. So you can run db.user.find mini, and we need to add a wait on there because it's a promise. And this is using DB is the Prisma, provided by Prisma, and then we can just do whatever we want. So I could say db.user.update, and we're going to say where ID is equal to 1, and give a data and say Brandon. And it just updated my user in the database with my name. And so this is a good way to just test out code, run off one-off commands, explore the database API that Prisma gives you. So you can see there's a lot of features that we get here. Now let's go back. It disappeared, but what it says there is it gives you a command that you can run for. Let's go ahead and close that and close that. Okay, so we can run blitz generate all, and this is going to generate. You can generate various different types of files. You can blitz generate model, blitz generate queries, blitz generate all. We'll do all of them, and we're going to generate it for the project model. And then we're going to give this thing a name attribute that's a string, and we could pass other things like is archived Boolean. Now this is going to generate some code for us, and it generates all the code that you need for all the basic operations, or CRUD operations, which is create, read, update, and delete. So it gives us pages, 4 pages. So you can list projects, you can view a single project, edit a single project, and create a new project. And then it gives us queries and mutations. So you can get a project, you get multiple projects, and then you can create a project, update a project, or delete a project. So this covers all the basic things you need. And so it just generates that a lot of boilerplate that you don't have to. So it is really helpful. And then it creates this model, and you can see it automatically adds the ID, created at, and updated at, because you almost always want those. And so we just add it for you. All right, so it's asking to run migrate to updated database. Click enter, yes. And it's going to ask for a name, say add project. You can name it whatever you want. It's just for reference. And so now we'll run Blitz dev. And so this will go compile again. And so this will show us all the basic code that we need. Now, one thing I forgot to do before, before this, let's do that. Okay, so the first thing we'll be looking at is the project's index page, and this is the code that it generates. So down here, the kind of top level component, it has like its title of the page, has a link to create a new project, and then it's using React concurrent mode. So we're using suspense for data fetching, which makes it so much nicer. Instead of doing if loading, else if error, all this stuff, instead of that, you just use, it's more like a try-catch model where you have a try-catch for your loading, which is suspense, and then you have a try-catch for your error, which is an error boundary, which is in the root of your app. And then you can see we have various authentication things. These are features that Blitz provides on top of Next. So you can say page.authenticate equals true, and it's going to ensure that you're logged in to be able to access this page. Okay, so now this component is where you actually load the data, and there we have a hook. It's called use paginated query, and this is built on top of React query, which you've probably heard of, and it's awesome. So we build our hooks on top of React query, and so this, you can say use paginated query, and then you pass in the get projects a Blitz query, and so that's how you use that thing, and then you pass in some arguments. And so in this case, we want a specific order, and we want a certain amount. So this is paginated, and then it returns that data, and then we just loop over that data to render it, right? And so there's no if loading, if else error. You just do projects.map and render it out. So let's look at what this looks like in the browser. So go to /projects, and you can see there's an empty list, so there's nothing here, but we can click on create project. It'll take us to projects/new, and add a project. Oh, it's because, so in my schema,
Yeah, we're missing some data here.
Boolean, I said is archived is required, but I don't really want it to be required. So I'm going to run Blitz Prism migrate dev. And so that'll just update the database so that field isn't required. And run Blitz dev again. And while that's compiling, we'll go back to this code. So we were looking at projects index, and so we import this get projects query. Okay, so this thing is, we're going to go look at this. So this is where the magic happens between this file and the file we're going to get projects query. This is that file. Okay, so this is it. It's just these two files. And what this file does, I'll show you. There's a little bit of some utility wrappers there, but essentially, the core is this right here, db.project.findMany, and that's so it's accessing the database, reading that data, and then it returns that data. So it returns the list of projects. It returns the next page, whether there's more, and then how many the total is since it's paginated. And this paginated query or utility here is just a nice wrapper that saves you a bunch of boilerplate for managing that pagination. And then this resolver, we wrap this with a resolver.pipe, and this is a functional pipe. So it's a little bit of functional programming here, and it allows you just to plop in a number of functions, and it just runs those functions in order. And so this is we found this to be really nice. So for one thing here, we can add in resolver.authorize, and this is going to ensure the user is logged in. If they're not logged in, it will throw an error. And so you can add in other utilities like that, like input validation to ensure, like if you're expecting a string, you want to make sure that the user passes a string and not a number, things like that. So let's go look at this. All right, so, yep, and so that worked this time. So now it created us and took us to project/1, which is project ID 1. And then you can see here the boilerplate we generate is, we just like dump out the JSON here. But of course, it's ready for you to bring in your own custom components and styling. So we could edit it, and you can see it, we can edit it, we can delete it, go back to the projects list, and there it is. So it's all the basic stuff. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you for the demonstration. I think we have some. Oh yeah, more. So, that's cool. Yeah.
So let me show you one more thing. Actually, what I'll do instead is I have a couple more slides that I will run you through. So we have a thing called Blitz recipes that allow you to run, to install third-party libraries with one command. So like Blitz install Tailwind, Blitz install Chakra UI, Blitz install Emotion. And so it allows you to do a bunch like things that require multiple steps, installing dependencies, updating code in your app. You can just do that with one command, and we do it all for you. And then we have the Blitz console I already showed you. And then a few other features is Passport.js adapter for social login. So if you want to do like login via Twitter or GitHub or whatever, we have a thing for that. Middleware, advanced data serialization. So you don't have to worry about serializing and deserializing things like dates. It's just automatically done for you. So that's pretty cool. Serverless, custom server support, and then any database agnostic. And we'll skip. So you can try to Blitz in 5 minutes by running npm i-g-blitz, and then legacy peer deps, which is because of npm 7, it's a weird thing. Or you do yarn global add blitz, and then blitz new my app. So our open source project, we'd love for you to help contribute in any way. You can check out that link for more information. And then I have a couple links. So Blitz.js.com is the best place to get started. Blitz.js.com, where all our documentation is. And then there's a couple Twitter handles. And then last but not least is you can get free stickers. So go to blitzjs.com/stickers, and we'll send you free stickers anywhere in the world. As of today, I think it is, we've sent out 500 stickers to like 69 countries. And that's just in a couple months. So since we started offering them. So free stickers, blitzjs.com.
All right. So, I mean, it looks impressive because, I mean, I've done this Next.js development and then sort of fight with the backend or with the API.
Yeah.
So.
He's already got his stickers.
Yeah.
Amadeus.
Cool. So we have some stickers there. So I guess now is a good time to get some questions. So there's Punky X or Punkix asking what happens if you need to call an API instead of the project.
I'm guessing like a third-party API.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's the third party.
Yeah. So you would depending on what you're trying to do, but probably you would call the third-party API inside your Blitz query and function and or mutation. So instead of talking to the database inside that query, you'll just talk to the third-party API.
Cool. Yeah. So the couple of things I have in mind. So how do you compare to Amplify? Like Amplify, of course, Amazon has the biggest cloud offering of the world, and it's likely sort of tied to Amazon hosting. But how do you compare Amplify and Blitz? What are the differences or the similar things in your mind?
They're different. They're sort of solving a similar problem, but they're taking a totally different approach. So Blitz is aiming to be at the same level of abstraction as Ruby on Rails or Laravel. So it's a full stack, self-contained framework that you can run anywhere. You can deploy it anywhere. You can run it anywhere. It's all self-contained. You can run it locally. Whereas Amplify is like very tied into AWS. You can't deploy an Amplify app to somewhere else. You can't even run most of the Amplify services locally. And so it's just kind of a whole different thing. But then also Amplify, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, but it's sort of Amplify seems more specific for Amazon offering, and what you provide is more generic in a sense.
Yeah, and I can only highly recommend Blitz.js because when I need to build something, I usually use Next.js, dropped in Auth0, deploy Tesora with a GraphQL endpoint, and since a few weeks, I'm using Blitz.js, and it's faster than ever. I'm really happy and very, very thankful for this cool tool. So good job, Brendan.
Awesome.
Yeah, I even might have a client in mind that could use Blitz, because what happened, we set up Auth0, and now the client is like, what's the backend? Maybe use Hasura or something hosted, because Next.js or Ursel doesn't provide database offering yet or authentication offering yet. But of course, what might happen in a couple of years, they have something. So it's sort of, for me, it's interesting to see if Ursel will take some ideas from Blitz to pull into Next.js itself. Because
we're in communication with the Next.js team. So I think a lot of the things they don't want, like they're pretty happy with their level of abstraction. But there are some things I think that potentially could be upstreamed. But yes, we'll see.
Yeah, it's sort of, where do you draw, what's the boundary of your solution? Like if you decide that Next.js is what it is, it will not go outside of the box, then it is what it is. So we have a couple of more questions. So what's the current state on the discussion about enforcing certain backend principles? Currently, Blitz gives you some level of freedom in that.
So I don't think we'll ever enforce anything, except maybe if it's around security or something. But we will. So right now, we don't even, there's a lot of things we don't really have defaults or recommended happy paths for backend architecture, things like background processing, email, stuff like that. We're still working on that. So some of that stuff you might have to kind of figure out yourself or ask people in the chat, in the Discord, what they're doing. But yeah, we're going to be continuing trying to give you more guidance and like make it easier to do more complex backend stuff.
Well, makes sense. I think, and one challenge you have always is like this migration. How do you do with migrations? So over time, like you want to change the data model, and at the same time, you don't want to lose data. So, all right.
I think Prisma is the right abstraction for that, because if you want to change the database, I think it would be possible with Prisma. So there's some migrations possible from, don't quote me on that, but I think from MySQL to Postgres or vice versa. So it could be possible. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sounds good. And then Punkix is saying Ursel is good for Blitz apps. So you could take a Blitz app and put it on Ursel, but how do you deal with the backend? Because you need to host a database somewhere. So
yeah, currently we are recommending to not deploy Blitz apps to Vercel. While you can, most people that try it run into too many issues and give up because us running mainly around database connection issues because like Postgres or MySQL isn't serverless, but Vercel is serverless. And so you have this mismatch. So most people are deploying Blitz not serverless. Most people are deploying Blitz to like render.com, for example, or Heroku. And most people are much happier with that setup for right now.
Yeah, okay, makes sense because everything has to be serverless for it to make sense in that environment. But do you think that Blitz.js will work with some serverless database one day? So you could take serverless offering for database.
Yeah. So Blitz works with serverless databases right now. So you could use Fauna. We have a Fauna example in the repo. And so you can do that. It just doesn't work with Prisma, which is,
right.
Like I said, Blitz doesn't require Prisma. But Prisma is going to be working on serverless database support. So there's a number of things I think that they're looking at on the roadmap, things like supporting Fauna directly, supporting DynamoDB. Mongo support is already in preview, which is not, Mongo isn't really serverless either, but it may have some, maybe better in some cases. So yeah, I think it's only going to get better for serverless applications.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense that once Prisma gets it, then you get it too.
Yeah. So is there a possibility to deploy the Blitz with Fauna to Vercel? Because like Fauna is, that would be possible, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, for those people who want to deploy in Vercel, just use Fauna, for example.
Okay. Yeah, now it's the last time for anyone to ask questions about the topic. So if there's anybody on YouTube and they have a question in mind about Blitz, now it's sort of the last moment. Yeah, maybe we go to next. We have the next JS demonstration. So
wish me luck that everything works.
Yeah, let's see. Typing is happening. Maybe more. No, it's okay. Now we got it. So,
perfect.
Yeah, good luck.
It's working, right?
Yeah, it's starting slideshow.
Yeah.
So here we go.
Yeah, here we go. So hi, my name is Amadeus, and I want to demo Next.js and just give you some few overviews and tips and tricks. So yeah, we had the introduction before, but just a quick rundown again. I'm 24 years old. I live in Munich, and I'm a co-founder of a small web agency. And yeah, so the overview. I will talk about some features of Next.js and what's different from, for example, Create React App, and then I will focus on a specific feature of Next.js, and which is called incremental static regeneration. And I will lead up to that, so you don't have to worry. And finally, I wanted to talk about some deployment strategies and maybe get a discussion started. What you guys, how do you deploy Next.js applications, or how do you deploy any React application, or whatever you do? I'm very interested in that, to open my mind and find out new stuff. So this is a very small feature set, which I'm going to present you today, because we don't have the time and there are a lot of features. But I always think of Next.js as the Create React app with batteries. So Next.js brings their own solutions for a router. Usually you have to choose between Reach Router or React Router, and Next.js deploys a new way of routing called file-based or file system-based routing. So every page you have in the special pages directory is a route. So, and then you can link to it via a link component or an href. And the image component is a new feature since version 10, which allows for automatic image optimization. So you can think of it like a Gatsby version but those images will be created on demand. So your build times don't decrease dramatically. There's features for or options to set for different display sizes. So your mobile end users get a smaller version. All images are lazy loaded and only when they are in the viewport. So Blitz, Next.js also has built-in support for Post.js, Babel, API routes, server-side rendering, and static generation. And the subform of that is incremental static regeneration. So you can think of Next.js as your big brother. Everything is there for you. If you want, just use the happy path, and you can just drop in your Post.js plugins. Or firstly, create a Post.js file, and then add your custom configurations, auto prefixer, purge CSS, or even Tailwind. And everything is there for you. But you can also eject out of the happy path and do your own stuff. For example, if you want to do some heavy 3D animations with Three.js, you can import custom shaders via the Babel config. Just use a Next.js plugin or the preset for Next.js, and everything works. The API routes is also a feature that Bren already talked about, and I wanted to showcase a small little detail I use at my home, because I've got some smart switches, so I can just control them via normal remote, and my lights turn on and off. And I deployed a small Next.js application using these API routes, which run code on the server. So you can also use those API routes to run commands on the server. So you could, for example, switch on the lights. Maybe you can see it in my camera or not, but or maybe you can hear the clicking. So my lights just turned on, and I'm just using a small web interface, or it's a Next.js application, and I just press the buttons. So, oops. Yeah, so let's start with the demo. For this example, I'm using Dart.cms because as a good developer, I started my blog, wrote a few blog articles, and then, of course, stopped. But this is a perfect demo to show you how incremental static regeneration works. But don't worry, I will get to that. So I would switch the sharing now and show you some code.
Yeah, I think you can share some different screen or so. I think you will get it going. Or I think maybe you can choose the window. Let's see. Yep,
I hope so. I'm just sharing the screen, so this should work now. Oh. Yeah. Now you can see the Visual Studio Code, right?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Okay. So just to go over what I just said before, so you don't need to install Post.js. Post.js is just already there. So you can just create a file, Post.js config, and just add your custom configuration, and everything works out of the box. So to use absolute imports, because writing ... to get to a different directory to import, for example, some library components, you can also use this JS config, and the TypeScript users already know about it. It's a TS config for TypeScript users, and you can just define your base URL and define some absolute imports just for referencing files faster. So let's start with the pages. For example, I have an index.js. So this one just imports some components, as we all know, sets some head information. Usually you would use React Helmet from the NFL for a usual React application, but Next.js already has their own implementation of that, so you can use it. And let's talk about some special files. So the _app.js is custom to Next.js. You can import some styles, some general fonts, or whatever you wish that always gets rendered out to the user. You can define some client fetching libraries like SWR or React Query, or some authentication with Auth0 or whatever you like. And so let's go over the code. I will just hide this function and the imports. So to start this, we have to look at this function. So we're exporting an asynchronous function with the name getStaticProps. This is special to Next.js. This function tells Next.js that when we generate those pages, we will fetch the information once, and after that, we're done. So we import all the overview data, for example, all posts. So we can ignore this for now. This is incremental static regeneration. I will talk about that later. And then we just return the props, and then we reference those props and just map through them and display the data. So yeah, because we have different posts, and those different posts have different names and should have subpages, there's this option of dynamic routing. And just to show you, I hope you can see it, there's some angle brackets and the name .js. So this tells Next.js this is a dynamic route. So let's hide that. So as you can see, we have a new function there. Because we have dynamic routing, we need to tell Next.js which pages are there or which posts are available. So we fetch those posts, then we map through them and generate a path. So for each slug, we have a special path, and then we transfer the data to the getStaticProps function, which accepts the params. And this is just the same song and dance like before. We just fetch the data and then return it via the props. And this validation logic, I will come back to that later. And then we have just a normal post. So now I would like to switch back. Okay, it doesn't seem to be working. Then just let's move on. So while this loads, I'm going to show you the demonstration first. So we have this content. React Finland is amazing. And where's this? Yeah. There we have our CMS, and we have here the blog post. So when I'm going to when I go to change this content, for example, with 3 exclamation marks, and push this or publish it, the content will update. So I will show this again later, so for a more clear explanation until this loads again. So what we see here is the stale content. When a new user goes to my blog, for example, and refreshes the page, he still sees the old content, which is cached. And in the background, Next.js is talking to the database, for example, data.cms, and is regenerating this static page for the next user. So we wait some time, and hopefully now when I refresh, yeah, there we have the 3 exclamation points marks. And to show you, no deployment happened. Like the last deployment was 23 days ago, and this content just updated without doing a full deploy. Now, where this is very useful is for a large e-commerce site. Let's think about it. We have 100,000 products, and we want to generate all those pages. aesthetically generating those pages would take hours. I just wrote a random number, but it would probably take 4 hours. And because this is very inefficient. So for example, we want to offer a discount. So the shoes normally cost, the shoes are now 50% off. So from $100, they're now $50. So we don't want to go redo the whole build process because it would take way too long. So there's this option to enable incremental static regeneration. So we generate the most popular pages now, so at build time, probably the first 100, and the rest is on demand. And yeah, of course, there's this question, how do you update these pages? So we have the content in our CMS, and after that, we generate the most popular pages, for example, the first 100. And after some time, the users hit different pages, everything gets created on demand and cached. So those pictures are from a blog article from Lee Robinson. I will link them later on my Twitter. And because this is just a great picture, I couldn't have done a better job, so I used it. And so when we wanted to offer a discount, we don't want to go through this whole song and dance again. So there's this option of the revalidation. We could generate the pages first, and then we serve it from cache whenever a user hits our routes or our products. And in the background, when a user hits this, it has an internal timer. In this example, it's 60 seconds, but for our demo purposes, I set it down to 1 second. So when a user hits this page after 60 seconds, so after a minute or a day or whatever, Next.js goes to the CMS in the background and checks, hey, is there new data? And when there is, the new page will be generated and then updated and then cached. So the next user gets the new information. And I think this is a very, very powerful solution to large e-commerce sites to handle this data load and the build times. So yeah, I can just switch. Yeah, so the only thing that we have to do is to enable this feature is to add the revalidate prop on the getStaticProps function. And I think it's pretty amazing. Just by one line of code, you don't have to do a whole deploy again, and your content is always up to date. Of course, you can set it to a day, but you have to set it in seconds. So I think it would be 86,400 seconds probably. And yeah, I hope I'm not wrong. And yeah, so then the content updates again. And I think this is a very, very powerful opportunity to stand out for Next.js. And of course, you have the opportunity to server-side render. And to show you that, I can just switch this function from getStaticProps to getServer-side-props. I hope I didn't misspell it. And when I would push that to production, the index page would always be server-side rendered. So every time a user hits this page, it will get created freshly. Yeah. So this was the demo. Okay, so let's test it again, just to show you, because it should be clearer now.
Yeah, maybe we have to exit the full screen or so.
Yeah, no, okay.
Yeah.
So React Finland is amazing. Live, and just save the content, just publish it again. And as you remember, now I refresh, and yeah, that was the last update. So Next.js, when went to the data.cms and asked the database, is there new content? Do I need to update anything? And after some time, we get a new update. So this is a pretty amazing feature in my opinion, and which really stands out to me.
I mean, here's the question. So do you think it will be possible to make like a live update so let's say you're reading the page now, push an update and the page will just get the content. So maybe like some subscription or something like that. Do you think people use it, or is it sort of like a gimmick?
So it's not really a subscription. It's
no, but I mean, if you could do subscription on top of this, so you could maintain a connection on the website, and then you go and change the content. And
but this also for a large e-commerce site, the database would be hit with so many requests all the time. So
right. You will have to need a connection for each.
And connection pooling and stuff like that. And so it is a very easy option to still statically generate the content.
That's cool.
So this was my short demo, and now I wanted to quickly finish with the deployment. And this incremental static regeneration is a special source for Vercel. So they created Next.js, and Vercel is their own hosting platform. And I saw some Twitter threads that somebody is working on serverless components to enable ISR. So so Vercel is the default platform for deploying Next.js applications. You can just connect to your GitHub account, and when you change some source code, the new version will be deployed. Another option is, of course, Amplify. There is it's a beta feature where you can also enable server-side rendering, but at the moment it's only static generated content. Serverless components is a tool for deploying it on your own AWS account. It's just a one-liner, and your static website gets deployed to an S3 bucket with CloudFormation, and you can add your own custom domain, for example. And they're working on also enabling incremental static regeneration. And what I heard, that it's also possible to host your Next.js application via Docker. And there are some great examples. So when I tap that link. What I wanted to tell you also is that Next.js, the GitHub repo, has an examples folder. So there are tons and tons and tons and tons of examples where you can start. So for example, I need to use Redis. Upstash. Or let's try Apollo. And there are some default starters you can use just to get you started more easily. There's, of course, AMP support, active class names, and you can really find the starter you want to have, and you can start from there. Most libraries also support Next.js because it's one of the largest React frameworks. And what I wanted to talk about is the deployment with Docker. And they have a great Docker file where you can bundle your Next.js application and then deploy it to an ECS instance on AWS or Google Cloud Run. I'm not sure about the Google offering or the Azure offering. And there are many ways to hit your goal, and I just wanted to show you that there are many, many paths, and there's a lot of pre-built stuff. And if you want to start with a Next.js application, start by looking into the examples. They're always up to date with the newest versions of Next.js. And so this was my talk, and I hope we can get some feedback or some questions. And
thanks for a demonstration. Now actually I remember, so it's time for discussion. I mean, I forgot to play this for the earlier one, so now we got it. But yeah, so about Next.js, I think Netlify added some kind of support for hosting Next.js as well. I didn't try it yet, but I don't. It's sort of a new thing as well.
Yeah, I think they only support static hosting.
Yeah.
No.
They support, as of recently, they support everything.
Oh, really? Cool.
I think. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I didn't know about that. Thank you.
Yeah. That's really cool, because I think earlier the point was that if you use Next.js, it's best to host on Vercel, but it seems that's just changing. So
yeah.
There's a question: does ISR count as build time?
No, as far as I know, no, because everything happens in the background, and I showed you my deployment before from Vercel, and the last deployment was 23 days ago. So everything happens in the background.
I remember it was really a long time ago that you deployed. In some cases, for smaller sites, I use webhooks. So I have my content somewhere, and then I use a webhook to trigger a deploy. So that sort of works with anything. But with Next.js, we get this other option as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So because we mostly use Strapi as a CMS for our clients, we also use webhooks to deploy Next.js applications. And for some larger sites, we use incremental static regeneration. I just shared my screen again, and 23 days ago.
But it was like that. So let's see if people have more questions about Next.js. Yeah, but it's sort of impressive how much it went forward in a couple of years. So
yes, absolutely. And there are no breaking changes. Like the last breaking changes I remember was 9.3 when they switched from get initial props to get static props and get server side props. And it's been like the most stable framework I know. And I think they're really catching up to, I think they surpassed Gatsby, because Gatsby has immense build times, and we had some old clients which had to buy GitHub Pro because their deployments were so long. So they needed like 3,000 minutes in a month. And after switching to Next.js, all those costs went away. And I think it's a better framework.
Yeah,
because everything is hybrid,
Yeah, it's really, really interesting, because they're sort of competing, but I think the approach is completely different. So but at the same time, both are built on top of Webpack. So I mean, the sort of the core of both is about the same.
Yeah,
it's just very different. Different interpretation on top of that.
Yeah, and what I really like about Next.js is that per page there's a different data fetching strategy. So for some pages, you can ask, this page is server-side rendered all the time, this page is statically generated. And of course, you can do some client-side fetching after that. So there are some great examples of a query where you can hydrate the first request from the server and then refetch on the client. So it's a really amazing technology.
So did you try Next.js Commerce? So there's something new. So they make it easier for people to make shops or also.
No, I haven't tried it because I was very busy with moving our own site to a new framework, to Strapi and ClientWorks, and I didn't have the time. But have you tried it?
And I was like looking at it, but the thing I needed wasn't ready yet. And then I found out that the accountant will not work with that solution anyway. So it's sort of, I mean, the technical solution, you might be able to do the technical side, but when an accountant is saying that I'm not doing it, it doesn't make sense to do the technical side. Yeah,
it definitely does. I think they're working on supporting more e-commerce stores like Shopify, and I think they have BigCommerce already.
Yeah, it's a new thing. So But what do you think will happen to Next.js in the future, like with the next major version, or do you have any insight on what's going on for development?
No, I don't have any insights on Next.js, but I think they will move on the same direction. The new image component was really something they were missing from Gatsby or from other competitors before, and now they surpassed them. And I think maybe, I don't know, so maybe they will start offering authentication in the future, and work on more enterprise stuff. Like they have the internationalization, which dropped version 10, which is a big improvement, especially for our clients with more or multi-language content management systems. Yeah, I don't know what do you guys think. So, where is the direction Next.js could go?
So maybe Brandon has some idea on this.
Mm-hmm.
So I know one thing, key area of focus right now is development speed. Mm-hmm. So they're working on improving everything related to development, like how fast it starts up, how fast it compiles, all of those things. And they're working on a sort of like minimal plugin system. So there was an RFC for a more kind of open plugin system, but now they've taken that out and they're like really focusing in on just a few key things. Like one is error handling, and so there's a Sentry plugin coming, and it'll work for other providers too, be able to add their own plugins. Because right now it's super difficult. It's like all this ugly code to get Sentry working in Next.js for full stack errors. But that will sometime soon, I think. I know it's being worked on. Will make it easy to just much simpler. So that'll be one really good thing.
Yeah, I think it's yeah.
I wanted to add, didn't they hire the creator of Webpack a few weeks?
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say, that they hired the creator of Webpack, Tobias Koppers. So I think that will speed them up a lot. Mm-hmm. So I think they will be able to help do a lot of work on performance and making it faster and just making Webpack work better for Next.js.
Yeah, because I just fiddled around with some Skypack or Vite stuff with ES-Build, and like the build times is amazing, like 50 milliseconds and everything is there. And having that in Next.js would be amazing, because it would also like help Brandon with Blitz.js and everybody. So I can't wait when they will enable a ES-Build like feature for Webpack.
Yeah, that's a direction. So I think the next generation JavaScript tooling for JavaScript is written in some other language than JavaScript. So like ES-Build, and then there was SWC. So SWC is something like ES-Build but written in Rust, and ES-Build is written in Go. So you get these compiled languages that are really, really fast, and it's really a magnitude of difference in performance. So it's interesting, and I know that projects like Storybook, they're looking to decouple themselves from Webpack, so they can replace Webpack with some other bundler or modern solution. Because there's so much, it sort of feels like there were a couple of years not so much happened in the bundler space, but now it's happening. There's a lot of going on in the space again. So we have, like you mentioned, Vite is very, very fast, and then we get these new compilers. So I think the next years are going to be interesting, because I think we're just going to get a new level of performance for developer tooling.
Yeah, Brandon, do you have any insights on the build times? Or do you have any more informations maybe?
No. I know there's an ES-Build loader for Webpack.
Yeah, I heard about it. Yeah.
So I'm assuming they'll be trying that. I don't know. Yeah, there was a video. One of the Next.js team tweeted out a video. It's like 20 time improvement on hot reloading speed, and I don't know if that was using ES-Build or what. They didn't say, but it was like as you're typing, it was like instant update, like
Wow.
no delay at all. So they're definitely aware of this and working on it.
Yeah.
I think that's a great feature. Yeah.
Mm.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. So about ES Build, I think the main problem at the moment might be that, I mean, if you have a complicated Babel setup, you might not be able to replicate it with ES Build. So you're able to use ES Build in if the case is simple enough and you don't use many custom features, or ideally no any custom features, and it might just be plug and play. But if you have something custom, then you might have to remove the custom bit from your project before you can try ES Build.
And both Next and Blitz rely pretty heavily on Babel currently.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't think they'll be moving away from Babel, but they'll be trying to still keep Babel but make it as fast as possible.
Yeah, it's sort of I guess the interesting point is maybe there's some interest in investing to ES Build, because with these new tools, ES Build and SWC, as far as I understand, is single developer doing it on their spare time. So it's sort of once we have more developers looking at it, and I mean things might move faster. But it's we'll see.
Do you think it would be feasible to rewrite a Babel in Go or in Rust? So, question both to you.
Yeah, I mean you can write anything in any language. So.
Yeah. I mean, it can be done, but then it's like how much time, or more likely what's going to happen is that some tool like ES Build, it will reach enough parity. So that it has enough features to be able to compete with Babel in many cases, and over time people move over, and maybe it gets more funding and more developers and attention, and it's filling the gaps. So I guess there is some like it needs reach certain threshold before it can become very popular in the community. But at the same time, now we have new build tool built on rollup, this Vite, and they use ES Build. So it's like it's already happening. So it's gaining momentum and it's growing bigger, and it's sort of you give it a couple of years and it's going to be really big if it goes like this.
Yeah, I can't wait. Like better developer experience would save us all a lot of time.
Yeah, and at the same time, there are things happening outside of JavaScript. So like this, Reason or Rescript. So they rebranded as Rescript, and you come from you have different language, you have different environment, you have different tooling, but at the same time you lose a lot of the package we have in JavaScript. So we have to deal with compatibility and put things together. Like that's why Blitz.js exists, because it's a little bit complex to set up ESLint and Prettier and backend and front end, and it's a lot of things you have to know how to set up. So that's why we get new abstractions and frameworks and all that on just to keep the complexity in check.
Yeah, do you guys know about Rome.js? I think that's, I just heard it somewhere mentioned in a Twitter thread, which is like a new Node.js runtime, if I'm getting it correctly.
Rome is a all-in-one developer tool that includes bundling, linting, testing. So it's like taking ESLint, Jest, Webpack, Babel. I don't know about Babel, but most of these things, maybe even like Prettier, and putting them all into a single tool.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's like many tools in one. In this way, Deno from the developer of Node.js, so from Ryan Dahl, his new project. Deno is interesting as well because it's sort of I think it's more like a toolkit. So when you start using Deno, you get a solution for many things. Like you have testing, you have formatting, you have like many things you expect, but out of the box without thinking. And the standard library is very good. So it's sort of I think I mean year after year I feel that we're getting this like packaging. Like even Next.js is wrapper on top of something. Like React app is a wrapper. So it's wrapping Webpack, and a lot of tools are wrapping Webpack, and then you have some other like opinions on top of that. So it's simply because we have so many pieces, moving pieces, that it's a little bit complex. So we need this wrapping somehow. Yeah. So speaking of wrapping, I mean, I knew the tool beforehand, and I actually helped to come up with the idea. It's a little out of the topic, but there's a tool called MRM, or I think our team calls it Marmot, but it's MRM, and it's code mods, but it's code mods for project configuration. So what happens is that it can patch your package JSON, it can patch your TypeScript configuration, it can patch more or less any configuration you have. It works best with JSON. And then in this recent client project, because the client has many repositories, like monorepo, and on outside of that, many separate packages. And you can imagine how hard it is to manage the configuration across like 20 projects, because you have like couple, let's say 5 to 10 files, and you want to manage all that. So how do you do that? So what I did as an experiment, I wrote a package. I wrote a package on top of MRM that's capturing, I think it has TypeScript, it has Prettier, it has VS Code, it has git ignore, it has some weird API client stuff because then it's a configuration. It has Jest setup, it has Karma setup, and the Jest and Karma setup, they're compatible. So you write Jest tests, and I can run the same test over Karma. So I can test some things over browser that otherwise I would test on Jest. Or I can say that I can test these things only on Karma because it doesn't make sense to test something on Jest because it doesn't have the environment. So anyway, I pushed a lot of this configuration and files and everything to a single package. And what the client is doing, they get this package into their project. Like there's one repository or monorepo or whatever. They get this as a dependency, and it pulls all this developer stuff. When you have the development dependence and everything in this single package, you run single command, and it's patching the project. I mean, the first run, it takes some effort because you have to like get rid of some old stuff and throw old configuration away, and then maybe reformat. But after you do it once, then you're sort of good to go. So in the future, if you make some change into this one package, then you run command again, it's going to patch, it's adding some little change, and then it's sort of done. So you push all the maintenance into single package, and as it happens, that takes a lot of like pain from development. And now this week the client started doing these new packages. So what he is doing first is taking my package, he's adding it to project, he runs a single command, then he's ready to go and make a new package or his work. So he doesn't have to worry about the development setup anymore because I pushed all that into single package.
Cool. Yeah. This is a cool tool. I didn't know about that. I heard about ProGen. I think it's something similar, or was?
Yeah, like these are similar tools, but I mean the point is nobody knows MRM. It's sort of a shame because it's so useful. And I was thinking maybe it's even useful for Brandon with Blitz.js, because if you make a new version of Blitz.js and you update some rules, like let's say you update your Prettier rules or some configuration, so you could push a new version of Blitz. You tell the users, run this one command, it's going to patch the project to the new configuration, and you're sort of done.
Yeah, this is cool. Yeah, I didn't know about this tool. I will definitely check it out. And Brandon, I think that's the most useful thing for you, right?
Well, we're already doing a lot more complex code mod stuff directly with JS CodeShift, like with our recipes. Blitz install is already doing that, and so there's probably any changes that we would do, like it might need more than just config files, and so we'll probably just tap into the existing code we're already using.
Yeah, that's really cool. So yeah, CodeShift is like code modes, and that's really, really like powerful. So it's sort of a code shift, but just for configuration and copying things, files around and all that. So it's sort of it's code mods, but for configuration. I guess that's the way to sell MRM. But it's cool stuff. I think that code mods they're sort of underrated. I think people still use more code mods because it's making things easier for consumers. Yeah.
Yeah, cool stuff. So I definitely need to check it out, and maybe I can integrate it into my workflow.
Yeah. It takes a while to kind of get it, and maybe the APIs could be a tiny bit nicer, and maybe the documentation could be nicer. I think I have to write about it because it's sort of it was eye-opening for me to write one package to capture all the pain I have in the projects. So I push all development stuff into one place, and then I'm sort of done. So, but yeah, I mean, if you don't have anything else to discuss, we can just call it a day. And I mean, I want to go sauna because it's sort of sauna time. So
perfect. Yeah, nothing from me. Thanks for having me and giving me the chance or the opportunity. And
yeah, I mean, it went well. I mean, of course, we had to. Let's say restart computer or something or figure things out, but the demonstration went well. So
thank you.
And actually next time in a month we'll focus on Next.js. So we have 3 demonstrations about Next.js, and I think it will be interesting. I hope.
Cool. Yeah.
So I guess that's it.
Cool.
Thanks. Yeah, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.